Allyson Stewart-Allen is the founder and director of International Marketing Partners, joins me in the studio now. Allyson, thanks so much for coming in. So, how did the hearing go in your opinion? Did Rupert and James Murdoch manage to restore any confidence amongst investors?
I think one of the things that's really interesting is that they certainly haven't put a lot of concerns, at bay. And if anything, I think questions are now being asked about whether these practices are beyond News International and News Corporation. And in fact, perhaps this is an industry-wide phenomenon or practice. But I think specifically for News Corporation, what didn't come across was any ownership of the problem. Trying to, or appearing to legitimize the use of private detectives, appearing not to be on top of the facts, appearing not to know that the legal fees of people, who are accused and have done prison time for phone hacking have been paid for by their organization.
I mean, and to me, that struck me as being quite remarkable, because when you have fees going out, I mean, they were talking about £700,000 in the papers. We've been hearing about payments of up to £1 million. I mean, these are significant payments. You would think that senior executives would be aware of this, but then I suppose they would argue for a company of our size, that's just a drop in the water.
Yes, well, they did say that News of the World was only a 1%. Component of the wider, larger business.
But then you think even James Murdoch, who, was part of News International, would be aware of this.
Absolutely. And the distance that they put between themselves and the facts, and not taking ownership and responsibility by saying, no, I'm not responsible, I trusted other people. Well, if you look at other boards of directors and other companies, they take ownership of these issues. These are extremely important violations of trust, of the public, of the shareholders, of the employees. There are a lot of stakeholder groups who have to be re-engaged now. So I think it's going to take a very long time for this company to come back from this.
So, for shareholders and investors, assuming that the evidence given at this hearing was true and they weren't aware of these illegal practices and what was going on, does it raise issues about corporate governance then? The Murdochs saying that they delegated much of the power and responsibility. Sure. I mean, shouldn't the CEO make it his business to know? I mean,
yes, or her business. Yes, absolutely.
So it's not going to reassure investors or shareholders that they didn't know?
I don't think so. And I think what's raising flags is if you are an investor, you might be thinking, A, should we be in newspapers at all? Because if this is a wider industry phenomenon, this is the wrong sector to be in. Secondly, we know print already as a medium is in decline. People are consuming their Bloomberg news, for example, online, on the go on mobiles. Print is a dying medium these days. So it's certainly raising a lot of questions about that and specifically about the corporate governance side.
And I'm curious about James Murdoch. Did he come off well? Because, I spoke to one shareholder group and they were saying, there were calls for him to step down because, of course, he's chairman of B-Sky-B, and it's had a knock-on effect on that company as well. Is his position as chairman of B-Sky-B any longer tenable? Is it improved after this hearing?
I'm not sure he looks credible. I'm not sure that on the back of what we saw yesterday that he looks like he is really in charge and has mastered the details of the business. Now, I take it that a CEO doesn't need to know how many tea bags are used every week in the canteen, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about much bigger, serious, potentially law-breaking activities of the company. And if the CEO isn't aware of these, you have a fundamental broken culture, processes, and it's clearly not a successful enterprise.
And then, of course, I have to ask you about the utterly ridiculous, farcical moment, the pie attack when it came, and when his wife, Wendy Deng, clocked the guy that did it. Did that work to the Murdochs' advantage? I mean, the pictures are pretty stunning. Like, newspapers, TV channels, everybody has to run it because it's just compelling, isn't it? I mean, look at it go.
I think what's it's surprising is that we're surprised. Actually, because given the level of controversy that surrounds him and his organization, I sort of would have expected it. But it certainly did change the mood and the tone of the questioning after that. So it was a turning point in terms of the...
I mean, a remarkable change in dynamic when the chairman of the panel sat there and actually apologized to the Murdochs, you know, but, you know, as you say, perhaps we shouldn't have been surprised, perhaps security should have been tighter. But I'm just wondering, you know, with these reports in the US that, you know, board directors are looking at Chase Carey stepping up as CEO. Aside from the gravity of these allegations, just a quick one on Rupert Murdoch's appearance, because would many shareholders, do you think, have been struck by his age and his frailty and his appearance? I mean, there needs to be a succession plan in place, regardless of this.
Yes, there does, and it feels very much like a family business with those succession issues alive and well. One could argue that yesterday's performance was completely choreographed in a way that said, I'm not on top of the details, please don't assault me, I'm just an old man, and your aggressive attacks look, you know, overly inhumane. And that you could say that was part of his strategy.
There you go. Thanks very much indeed, Allyson Stewart-Allen, Director of International Marketing Partners. Really good to get your thoughts, your insight on that hearing.